Alrighty, Subaru gang. Go over steering wheels, changing your steering wheel today, and self-canceling turn signals. Basically, the factory steering wheel, we're going to be changing to this wheel, and we need an adapter. I've always used the momo adapters like that's on that one because it helps push the steering wheel out further towards me where I'm sitting. But they've been having stocking issues, so we're going to try an NRG adapter this time. It's a little shorter. It's not made quite the same as the momo one, but it'll work just fine because it's all you really need is the splices or the splines in the center to be right, and the rest we can fudge. It's just aluminum. We can fudge it. So once you take off, I use these two bolts I think to push it off. Once you take the factory wheel off, you have the clock spring here. Now this is an important bit. It holds the airbag wires, which are cut, these little yellow ones, and then it has a harness or a plug that goes to the horn and some like cruise control buttons and things. Those leads I'm going to save because obviously we don't have cruise control and airbags in this. I'm going to use the old airbag wires for the horn because NRG puts these nice little horns in there and then gives you some new leads. And the clock spring is what lets you turn the wheel without tangling up wires. There's little tracks in there and wires slide, kind of like a, I kind of say like a Christmas tree train, sort of. Not really, but or like a trolley. But this thing here is rotation is important. You can't just stick it there and cut all this off and just put the thing on and expect your turn signals to still work. Okay, so these wires come down to these wires, goes to a connector for your cruise control, your airbag, turns, and your horn, stuff like that. And then you have your steering stalk. This is, or your turn signal stalk. That goes in. It's got two little screws and a plug under here. And I've switched these out. They're super easy to change. We'll get to this little guy in a minute, but I'm going to set it down here for now. So when your clock spring, it can't just spin willy-nilly all around. It'll spin 5 turns total. So to find out where your center is, first have your wheel straight, your steering wheel, everything straight where it's supposed to be. I recommend doing that before you even take the steering wheel off. Make sure everything's dead straight. And then I'll find, in case you forgot, turn it till you feel a little resistance. Don't overdo it. And remember, that's about where it is. So that's one. We'll go around 1, 2. That's about 3. Well, that's about 2.5. We'll get to that because that's about where you're going to be. 3, 4, and 5. You'll start to feel a little resistance again. So you go back 1, 2, and about a half. Okay, and you'll see that pretty much lines up. The two little nipples lines up with those two little holes, not the bolt holes, near the bolt holes, and that's how it goes on. So when this thing is top dead center, and those are about at 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock, give or take, you know your clock spring's pretty well where it needs to be. So when we build our adapter, or not build it, but when we put the steering wheel adapter on, that's where you want the clock spring. And then you got to have some part of the adapter you might have to cut out for this thing if you want to keep those wires. If you don't want to keep a horn or anything going through this, if you got nothing going through the steering wheel, you can just hack that off. But you got to keep something to lock this clock spring to the adapter so it turns with the steering wheel. Okay? Depends how custom you want to be. I'm going to use the horn wires, so I'm going to keep this thing, and I'll just cut the adapter to clear this. And then maybe I won't have to drill 2 holes for that. I can just use this to go back and forth. It's not hard, but something has to let it go back and forth. And then you'll notice when this is at the top, there's a little window right here. And right now with that at the top, that window is blocked off. But then when you turn it that way, it opens a little hole. When you turn it that way, it opens a little hole. And that, what I was saying, is for this little guy. This little white thing here that sticks out. Because when you turn your turn signals on, it pokes out. And then I'll show you. And it goes into that window. Okay? No turn signal, thing at the top. Turn your turn signal on. You'll hear it click into that window. And then as you turn the wheel, it just kind of ratchets. It doesn't do anything. But then as soon as you start turning it back and it catches in that window, it turns your turn signals off. Look at that. That little thing on there has to go into that window so when you turn it back, it turns your turn signals off. And that's because when you make one-handed shit. So you make a left-hand turn signal as you're turning the wheel left or right to make a right turn. That window is just clicking that thing up, but you can't go. It won't go back down because when you push it down, it cancels the turn signal and then retracts back in. Same the other way. And that is all because of this window here. And that window is locked, part of the plastic molding, to this outer part here. If you don't spin this, that doesn't spin, your turn signals don't cancel. So there you have it.